This is not just a storm. This is the ocean reclaiming what it was never meant to give away. On a cold winter night in 1953, the North Sea rose without warning, not as waves, but as a wall that no human could stop. Villages vanished in silence. Homes collapsed like paper, and within hours, entire communities were swallowed whole. The Netherlands, a nation carved below sea level, was suddenly faced a terrifying truth. It was never above the ocean, it was only borrowing time. In that single night, the sea did not just flood the land, it exposed a weakness that had existed for centuries. 1,836 lives lost. And a question that would change the future forever. What if the ocean comes back? We didn't lose to the storm. We lost to our own underestimation of the sea. After the disaster, the Dutch faced a reality unlike anywhere else on Earth. This was not a country above the sea. It was a country built inside it. Nearly 1/3 of the Netherlands lies below sea level. Protected not by nature, but by an intricate network of dikes, pumps, and canals. A system that must work every second, because if it stops, even for a moment, the ocean returns. But the challenge goes deeper, far beneath the surface. The land itself is weak, a fragile mixture of sand, clay, and peat that slowly sinks under its own weight. Building here is like trying to construct a city on top of a wet sponge. Every structure, every barrier, every line of defense must fight not only the water, but the ground beneath it. And then there is the pressure. The sea does not rest. It pushes constantly. An invisible force pressing against every wall, every barrier, every mistake. So the question was never simple. It was never just, how do we stop the ocean? It was something far more impossible. How do you defend a country that is already below it? You're not building on the ground here. You're negotiating with it. And sometimes the ground doesn't agree. And so the Dutch did something unimaginable. They didn't just build stronger walls. They built machines powerful enough to challenge the sea itself. What the Dutch built next was not just a barrier, it was a line of defense against the ocean itself. This is the Oosterscheldekering, a storm surge barrier. Unlike anything the world had ever seen, not a simple wall, but a dynamic system designed to control the sea. Each of its colossal concrete columns stands tall like a giant, rising from the seabed. In total, there are 65 columns, and when placed side by side, they are comparable in scale to the Eiffel Tower. Under normal conditions, the sea flows freely through its gates, but when a storm approaches, steel doors descend, and in seconds, an open ocean becomes a controlled boundary. But even that was not enough, because further inland, a different kind of threat existed. Two enormous arms, each the length of a skyscraper, float silently on water, waiting, and when the sea level rises, they move, slowly, precisely, and when closing together, until the ocean is completely sealed off. No human pushes a button. No alarms are needed. The system decides on its own. Because here, not even seconds can mean survival. It's a machine that listens to the ocean. And when the ocean gets too loud, it answers. But even these giants are no longer enough. Because the Dutch have realized something unexpected. You don't always fight water. Sometimes you let it in. For centuries, the Dutch fought the water. They built walls, barriers, machines, trying to keep the sea out. But over time, They discovered something unexpected. You cannot control water forever. So instead of resisting it, they changed the strategy entirely. They gave the river more space. Entire landscapes were redesigned to allow water to flow safely, naturally, not as a disaster, but as part of the system. Homes were no longer built against the water. They were built with it, floating structures that rise and fall with the tide, turning a threat into something predictable. Even cities began to transform. Public spaces, designed to flood temporarily, absorbing excess water during storms, and returning to normal when it passes. This is no longer just engineering. It is philosophy, a new way of thinking, where survival does not come from resistance, but from adaptation. We stopped asking, how do we stop the water? And started asking, where should the water go? Because in the future, this idea may not just belong to the Netherlands. It may become a global necessity. Today, the threat is no longer just a storm. It is something far more permanent. Sea levels are rising, not in hours, but in decades, and across the world. Millions of people living near coastlines are facing the same question the Dutch once asked. What happens when the water comes back? But here, in the Netherlands, the answer is already taking shape, not as a single structure, but as an entire system of engineering, adaptation, and vision. A place where cities are redesigned, where water is expected, planned for, even welcomed. Because in the end, the future is not about stopping the ocean. It is about understanding it, living with it, and respecting its power. The Netherlands is not just protecting itself, it's building a blueprint for the rest of the world. The ocean will always be stronger than us, but how we choose to face it, that defines our future. This is not just a storm. This is the ocean, reclaiming what it was never meant to give away. On a cold winter night in 1953, the North Sea rose without warning. Not as waves, but as a wall that no human could stop. Villages vanished in silence. Homes collapsed like paper, and within hours, entire communities were swallowed whole. The Netherlands, a nation carved below sea level, suddenly faced a terrifying truth. It was never above the ocean, it was only a borrowing time. In that single night, the sea did not just flood the land, it exposed a weakness that had existed for centuries. 1,836 lives lost, and a question that would change the future forever. What if the ocean comes back? We didn't lose to the storm. We lost to our own underestimation of the sea.